Hey everybody, this is Motorbike Mike and you're watching Motorbike Mike TV. Now today I'll be doing a review of my 2025 Beta XTrainer 300. It's been quite a while actually since I've done a review of a dirt bike, and I feel compelled to do so today because I think the XTrainer has been marketed not to the wrong group, because it's definitely for beginners. But I really believe this bike is for everyone, and as a vet rider, I'm really enjoying this bike. So let's get into the reasons why. Now, I bought this bike brand new with my own money from M-Tech Motorsports here in Bend, and Matt and Tom do a great job over there, and they're largely the reason why I switched to Beta in the first place. But what I wasn't prepared for is how good the bikes really are. It started a couple of years ago when I bought a 390 RS, which is more of an enduro street legal dirt bike, kind of like KTM's EXC model. Then I was immersed a little bit more into GPs, hare scrambles, desert races, so I wanted something that would hold up a little better at higher speeds in the whoops. So I switched over to the Beta 390 Race Edition, which would kind of be equivalent to KTM's 350 XC Red Bull Edition, which I also owned. In fact, I've owned about 15 KTMs, and I can tell you without hesitation, I like the Beta bikes probably just a little bit better actually. And I'll get into the reasons why. They're a smaller company built in Italy. The warranty is phenomenal on these bikes, and they just seem to be a little bit more solid. They're a little bit heavier, but you really don't notice that weight when you're riding the bike off-road. The XTrainer that I have behind me is not heavier. In fact, that's actually a little bit lighter, and there's a reason. The XTrainer is about 15% smaller than a regular full-size dirt bike, which is another one of the reasons why I bought the XTrainer in the first place. I'm not really doing too many GPs or hare scrambles anymore, but I wanted to do a little bit more hard enduro type riding. So my plan was to purchase this bike, go over to Utah, do the 5 miles of hell, on over to Idaho and do Gold Creek Lodge, stuff like that. Stuff that's a little slower, more technical. But what I found out by getting the bike early this spring, when riding season started to open up, it opens up out in the desert a little early, so you're out riding high-speed, whooped-out trails. And I was surprised to learn that the suspension on the XTrainer actually held up to that kind of riding really well. In fact, every bit as good as my Race Edition, which wasn't expected, because the Race Edition, if you looked at the Beta bikes, you know that it's got the Kayaba suspension, which is a premium component for off-road riding. Some of the things about the XTrainer right off the bat, and if you're looking for specs and measurements and all that stuff, you're not going to get that here. This is purely just my experience riding and owning the motorcycle. So that's what this review is all about. I'll start with the jetting on the bike. It's a carbureted bike, and I know I told a bunch of my friends I would probably never ever own another carbureted motorcycle as long as I live, but here we are. It's 2025, and as you can see, I own a motorcycle with a carburetor on it. For the most part, the jetting was pretty spot on, with the exception of right off from idle. It was really rich right there, and so I started reading up on the blogs just a little bit about what was going on with that, and I've learned that from the factory, Beta has put in a 7.5 slide that has a little bit of a cutaway on the leading edge, and that draws more fuel when you crack the throttle open at that like 8th throttle. And I couldn't seem to dial that out by raising or lowering the needle. Actually, it would be lowering the needle, putting the clip up higher. It cleaned it up somewhat, but not all the way. I also turned the air screw out quite a ways. That didn't seem to get rid of it. So I ended up purchasing a number 7 slide. That is the same cutaway without the notch in it. So once I got that slide in there and then dropped the needle all the way down, moving the clip all the way to the very top position. I don't know if you call that number 1 or number 5, but I moved that all the way to the top so that the needle is all the way down. And then I got my pilot air screw at 2 turns out, stock pilot jet, which is a 38. I've never messed with the main jet. And the jetting on this bike now at 3,400 feet here in Central Oregon, which is where I live, the bike is almost perfect. I've left it just a little bit rich on the bottom end as a little bit of protection so that I don't get a bog, or if I'm coming off from full throttle and I shut the throttle off right away, there's no chance of getting a lean condition there. And I'm really happy with where the jetting is now. So on to the suspension components. The bike has a sack shock in the back, and the only thing that I've done with that shock is set the sag. I've not touched the compression or rebound dampening on it at all. And for me, at 175 pounds without gear, let's call it 225 fully kitted up, and that's even with my hydration pack, the rear shock is set up about perfect for me, right from the factory. On the fork, there's a little thing about the fork that I just don't understand. I'm not really sure who makes the fork. The only thing I can get online about the fork is that they call it an ollie. I'm not really sure what ollie stands for, if it's the actual manufacturer of the fork. I'm thinking it's probably still a Sachs fork. I'm not really sure. But the thing that I dislike about it is it doesn't come with an air bleed screw, and it doesn't make any sense to me why a dirt bike with 11 plus inches of travel wouldn't have an air bleed. So I had Matt over at MTech actually take the fork caps off, countersink a hole, and then drill a small little hole all the way through the cap so I could put on the quick release air valve to release that pressure, whenever I feel like it's pumping up. So riding whooped out trails on the bike, those forks will pump up pretty quick. So it's really nice to be able to just put the bike on the stand and push those quick release air valves to let the air out of suspension. I really like the front fork a lot. It's very supple, and yet it does hold up in the whoop-de-doos, which is it's crazy. I never thought in a million years that this bike, targeted toward beginning riders, would hold up as well as it does in the whoops. So that was a pleasant surprise. The fork does have a cartridge chamber for rebound dampening on the left hand side, and it has an adjustable spring on the right hand side. So it takes an Allen wrench, and I believe there's about 4 turns of adjustability in there. I'm at about 2.5 turns from full preload on the front fork. Other than that, I've not touched the dampening adjuster at all, and I have a really nice balance between the front and the back. I'm really enjoying the way this suspension is set up and the way it works. And the handling on the bike is really nice and balanced. The bike feels really light in most conditions. It lays over nice in corners, knifes through tight technical turns when you're on tight single track. And yet, if you go out to the desert and run high speed, and you run through the high speed whoops and everything, the bike tracks straight as can be. So I'm not really sure if that's just the frame geometry that's working there. One of the things that I do like about this bike over the XCW KTMs with the PDS shock is it does have a linkage. And as far as accessories go, the only thing that I put on this bike are the hand guards that you can see here. I've put a full length skid plate on it so it protects the rear swing arm. and I've added a carbon fiber pipe guard. And that's the only thing that I've done to this bike. Everything else is stock. The engine is stock, the pipe is stock, and I've really enjoyed the power delivery of this bike. It's got a really nice low RPM torquey engine. It does flatten out a bit in the mid-range, but then has a nice brisk little top end to it, which is cool. But I've always ridden a bike a gear too high anyway, so the low torquey nature of the 300 two-stroke really works in my favor anyway. And you guys have probably heard the phrase three-stroke thrown around quite often, and if I have to say that this 300 Beta, if there ever was such a thing as a three-stroke, I would coin this engine as being such. It's just a really smooth linear power band, easy to ride. But back to my original point about how Beta is marketing this bike, I don't believe that this is just a beginner rider bike. I think they're missing the boat here a little bit, because I've been riding dirt bikes since I was 4 years old. I'm not going to tell you how many years I've been riding, give away my age here, but you know, as a seasoned veteran rider, I've been really enjoying this XTrainer. So I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.